Well, hello traders and investors. I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each time we're asking ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about the coming ones. We do a show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Archived on YouTube. It's under the channel L.A. Little. If you haven't subscribed and wish to, just reach up there. Subscribe is free. It's easy. It's easy to keep up with what's going on. If we take a look at what happened today, I totally missed the boat on the call for today. I was looking at something that was starkly different than what happened. And rather than getting some sort of a sell down I thought we would get, we in turn probably rose to one of the biggest days this year. 3% on the NDX, 2% on the Russell, almost 3% on the broad Nasdaq, 2.5% almost on the S&P. One of the largest days up across the board. DAX got it going overnight, 2.5% almost. Nikkei up big tonight, 3.5%, right? Asia's been underwater, so they're getting a nice big bounce tonight probably across the board. Oil did eke out a gain on the USO. It was down after hours. West Texas Intermediate trying to break over a swing point. Bonds taking it on the chin. Silver, gold, both of those also taking it on the chin. We've got everything that was going up before the past 2 months now getting hit. And we're talking about things like bonds, utilities, gold, silver, all those things were pushing. Now all of a sudden they're putting in a reverse. And you wonder if some of those other things that were, getting the nice big bids before are going to turn south as well. For example, West Texas Intermediate. Are we going to see copper do it? Are we going to see the basic materials pull back now? Utilities, so forth. Some of that's already happening. Some of it looks like it may start to happen. We definitely have a change in character today with this breakout. So let's take a look at the numbers and how they play out on the chart. So we'll start here with the S&P 500. So we had already on the S&P, we already had the breakout. That had happened a few days back. And I'd actually told members this weekend that we should expect a continuation of this move sometime this week. I just didn't think it was going to be today, and I certainly didn't think it would be the kind of strength we saw today. We had a pickup in volume, right? Pickup in price. What is it doing now? Well, the target clearly is up here at the swing point low that was broken, and you're not that far away from it. If you look at the bottom of that number, it's 1993. You're sitting tonight just underneath at 1978. So we're like 15 points away, which is in this market, it's nothing. I mean, you went up 2.5% almost today. So S&P 500 leading the charge on the way up. I told members Sunday night that I expect us to move over, not on the S&P, but on the Nasdaq, on the NDX, to move over those swing point highs, break those, right? Because we were extended on the MTTFs. And a break of these, which is what we got today, right, relieves the pressure on the short-term time frame, on the daily, right? Flips that trend around from bearish, which it was, right, to sideways. And so we're going to go sideways here tonight. That's going to say, hey, this downtrend's broken. And if you go back to what we talked about before when we were looking at the swing point low and why it was so important, a retest regenerate, which is what we were doing there, right? We broke underneath it, and then we're retesting and trying to regenerate to the downside. So in other words, you come back up, and the attempt is to take it farther. Well, if you can't take it farther and you get over it, and you get a couple bars over it, right, you should expect it to try to rise. It's an early warning sign most of the times that the swing point high that's somewhere up above is going to try to get tagged and probably broken, so that the trend really does change, because you always see me say, a retest regen is trying to decide if this trend's going to continue or if it's going to go something like this instead. That's what you got today. You get the break over the swing point high. That changes trend to sideways, and so the early warning system one more time does exactly what it's supposed to. Where's the Nasdaq going? Well, the obvious place next is these little big cluster of bars here, and then if we really get some juice, right, the Nasdaq could come all the way back to do its next bearish retest regenerate. NDX looking almost the same. Didn't really have a huge pickup in volume in those two issues. You did get a nice volume push on the Russell. The Russell was the one I was keying on last night. Even though we got the price failure, we didn't get the volume failure. I called that out last night, but I thought that it was close enough we might get that pullback anyway, a little dip back down into this area. Didn't happen, flips around, takes out the swing point high, actually gets over another key area, which is this little price zone, right? So if it can hold above this tomorrow, this one actually may try to take a run up towards that next bearish retest regenerate zone. And so when I'm talking about that, I'm going to pull over the Russell here. This has been the weakest, mainly because of oil, I believe, and the effect it's had on banks, which are a big part of the Russell. When we look at this longer-term chart, and I'm just looking at a weekly, you know, you had the moves up, down, the sideways, and then you had the break. This chart is still quite bearish, and if we looked at the monthly chart here, you'd see that you actually have a sideways trend on the monthly chart. But this chart's still bearish, and what are we doing? We're getting a big bounce off the lows, which is not unheard of. That's what happens even in a bear market. That's what you should expect. Trading to the downside is not the same as trading to the upside. What you typically get is you get big pushes down, big pushes up, bigger pushes down, so forth, right? They're violent affairs. Whereas on a nice little, uptrend like you saw the last 3 or 4 years, you get little bitty retraces, more push, little bitty retraces, more push. Every now and then you get a bigger retrace, but more push. And it just kind of grinds its way higher over time. It's a different trade if you're trying to trade short versus trying to trade long. If we're looking here at the Russell, actually, when we look at it on the weekly, that price point is trying to get to, which would be a bearish retest regen, 1078. And so when we pull over and we start looking here at the weekly time frame, instead of this next price point up here at 1108, 1078 looks like the number. 1078 is going to take you somewhere into this bar. So that's the Russell. That's the indexes. Didn't do what I expected. If they don't do what you expect, you have to respect what they do, and that is that they went up, which says you've got better strength than you thought you did, and you can expect some more to try to come on the heels of that. Let's look overseas. I'm going to go over to the world markets. And, the big story last night in my mind was the DAX and the big push up in the DAX. The DAX got over, and again, we've got the same scenario. We've talked about it. We talked about it last night again. We've got that same scenario where we've got a bearish retest regen. You break underneath it. You try to get over it. You get over at one bar. And last night, it looked like it was going to fail again, but no, now it's over it. Now what it's going to do is attack the swing point high. I wouldn't be surprised to see it try to get there tomorrow. That's going to put some juice in our markets, probably on the open, and push potentially, push the S&P up towards its target tomorrow, maybe the next day. But it looks like those targets are probably going to get pushed to, because the DAX itself looks like it's going to push towards the swing point high now that it's broken that retest regenerate zone. If we look overseas in Asia, Hong Kong still can't get anything going, although tonight more than likely they'll get a nice push. Hong Kong is over multiple times now over its bearish retest regen, so I would expect that Hong Kong is going to follow the rest of the world and go after its swing point high. And I think that applies to all the markets there in Asia now with this big move today here in the U.S. Came on the heels of bad news. I mean, it wasn't like we had any great news with the ISM and with the PMIs, but everybody was on one side of the boat, and a lot of times when everybody's on one side of the boat and you get something going, you get a lot of scrambling, and it was a lot of scrambling today. Those markets that were going down, all of a sudden going up. Here's the EEM into the retest regen zone on the swing point low. And so this is going to be, for me, this is going to be a key test, because this is after way more than 6 bars, right? You're coming back. You should get a failure in this zone. I'll be looking at this to see how that plays out. If we move to the other markets here, I wanted to go to the currencies. Let me grab Euro. So the European currency continues to push lower, of course, which helps the German market, the rest of the markets there in that are based on the euro. You did get an under-over with less volume, but you know I always put a little less emphasis on the ETFs. They're not the greatest of tools because they are ETFs, but we don't have volumes on Forex, so we have to use them. But you got over back under on the dollar, but with more volume, so at least they're consistent, which says we should try to see more strength in the dollar tomorrow, and that would probably put more strength, that would put a little bit more weakness into the euro as a result. If I look at the bonds came off huge today, so you're getting a big shift in those things that were going up right now going down. This breaks a B point. And so you've got some ABCD structures going on to the downside. You've got this one now just starting to break today, which would take you down. That's on the bonds. And so that action in those things that led now looks to be going and flipping around, taking them, putting them on the back seat, right, and putting everything else back in focus as the go-to markets. And so if we had to wrap it up and ask ourselves, you know, what's next? If I'm going to go back, I'm going to pull back up the Nasdaq here as an example. Now that we've got the break, right, over the swing point high, we actually already had in place an ABCD structure to try to take us higher, and it was from here up. Well, that ABCD structure is going to try to get to the swing point low or almost to it. You got the same structure on the S&P, you got it on the NDX, you got it on the Russell. It's all across the board. You're starting to see it elsewhere, like we just saw the bonds in the opposite direction. So for at least a while, you've got to expect some sort of a bias to the upside. It doesn't mean we can't come right back and do a retest, regenerate off this swing point high, and it wouldn't be abnormal for that to happen. And you know, if it does, it doesn't change anything. If anything, it simply sets up more strength to try to get up. And you've actually got here on the, I think it was this one. Let me double check it real quick. 46.1885. No, it wasn't. So it was on one of them. I guess it wasn't on the Nasdaq. I was going to say that you had a nested ABCD structure, but if this did pull back again, you would get the nested ABCD structure that would go in conjunction with this larger one that's already in effect, right? Both of them pushing potentially to the same area and reinforcing the thought that that's where it wants to travel before it's over. So that's where we sit tonight. Again, call last night, totally wrong. I respect that this market does what the market wants to do, and I always try to listen to what it tells me. You know, I was scrambling this morning to flip my positions and get more invested and make up some lost ground when this thing started to turn. We turned very early this morning, bought the TQQQs on a day trade, bought them twice actually. Didn't get the meat of the move. We got a decent chunk, made some money on it. But that's what you have to do if you're trading. You go with whatever's happening that day, irrespective of what you thought the night before. Because day trades are a lot different, right? You can trade them both ways. You just got to be able to time them. So that's it for tonight. I'm going to leave it at that. I would expect the bias is going to be the upside. I think with this big move today, you get some follow through in the morning, and then you probably get some sort of a pullback in the afternoon. You got a beige book coming out tomorrow afternoon as well. That may have something to do with it. Folks, thanks for joining me. As always, have a friend take a look at what I do, forward it to them. I'm LA. This is and was your daily NeoTA wrap. Have a great night. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Good night.